your hosts, Danny Mendez and Andy V.
That's right, fresh from holiday and fresh to death, it's the Urban Jungles radio show, breaking all barriers, while hopefully not sounding broken down this evening despite some nasty weather and being slightly under the weather. It's still your Beastmaster here, Danny Mendez on the mic, and with my wingman, Andy V, chilling on the couch of awesomeness.
Here I am, people. Here I am.
Hey, Andy, how the hell are you, brother?
I'm fantastic. How are you today?
I'm good, you freaking robotically excited man, you.
Yeah, you don't sound too good. You don't sound too good, man.
I sound a little assy, it's true, but it's okay. I still will manage 100% awesomeness permeation.
I have no doubt on that one.
Yeah. We have a lot going on tonight, and actually here on the couch of awesomeness, we have some extra company tonight, which I need to point out right away before we talk about how ill I sound. It's our guest of honor this evening,
Yes,
Andy.
it is. Our first live in-studio guest.
That's right, our first live in-studio guest here, chilling out alongside Andy, is Staten Island's own world-famous rapper, frequently featured on the Urban Jungles radio show. It's Chris Perillo. Everybody give it up for Chris Perillo out there. Woo. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
If you don't know already, a little later on tonight, Chris will hang out on the mic, and he's gonna spit some freestyle, UJR style, for us this evening. So definitely something you are going to want to hang out for. And man, yeah, I apologize. I know I sound like crap. I was on vacation, and I caught some swine flu or something.
Should have kept it on the island where you found it.
You know, man, it's crazy. Yeah, it was. I guess I should say it was a cruise, and I only mention that because I fought going on cruises my whole life, because I will admit this to you people, just so know that there is slight sometimes, you know, not, I wouldn't say weakness, but the Beastmaster is a little bit of a germaphobe sometimes, and I really wasn't. A little bit. Okay. And I wasn't really too excited about the idea of stepping on a place where you're kind of stuck with 2,000 other people.
One confined
but
space.
It worked out. It was awesome. It was good. You know, I didn't go in any public waters, but I would much rather swim in the Hudson River than a public pool, dude. I swear to God.
I'll second that one. I'll second that one.
Thank you. Chris is shaking his head over
one.
there, thinking I'm crazy, but it's true. I would rather take a dive in the Hudson, which I actually have, not purposely, mind you.
Yeah, okay.
It would explain a lot, wouldn't it? No. I would rather, I can't do the public pool, man. And especially, this is like one filled with kids, dude. What are kids doing in pools, man?
Pee,
snot, all that. And,
everything.
I was completely crazy about it, and I was trying to be careful, and I was clean, and I washed my hands constantly. And to the credit of the place we went to, it was fantastically clean. I mean, we literally saw like people on their hands and knees scrubbing and everything. It was a great place. But sure enough, man, freaking last day on Paradise, I pick up some freaking, I don't know, coconut crab virus. No, not that way.
Nice. Nice. Rid works really well. Not that I know, but I'm just saying.
It's up here, man, up here, and it's in my head.
It's always in your head, man.
It's okay. It's okay. We will persevere, because we have another amazing show lined up for you this evening. Is in just a little while we will speak with award-winning author and speaker Marty Essen, who'll be along shortly to tell us about his cool adventures on, count 'em, 7 continents, as documented.
All seven,
and
Look at
his
him.
outstanding book, Cool Creatures, Hot Planet, which will be coming up soon. I'm very excited to talk to Marty. I have been kind of stalking Marty for a while now, because he popped up on my radar with his book, maybe sometime last year, and then he's an amazing lecturer, like award-winning, like people, he's highly sought after, especially in the college lecture circuit, and he had done something here in Jersey in Seton Hall University. Unfortunately, I missed out, even though I was in communication with him about it, and I've been dying to talk to him ever since. So here he is tonight. I guarantee you guys are going to absolutely love him. Marty's pretty awesome. So
yeah, I was checking out a couple of his videos, and wow, the energy that he has is just... It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the dude's awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And just the adventures, man. How many people can say they've, traveled the world that way and just purposely looking for adventure.
I can say that.
Yeah,
I'm
true.
lying, but I can say it.
I mean, seriously, what an amazing thing. For those of you who've gotten to travel, it's just amazing to see how the other world lives. It puts so much into perspective. So I can only imagine what Marty will be talking about later on this evening. So we'll definitely be talking to him soon. And before we move on, quick reminder that Rattlesnake Roundup season starts now. It has been in the works as early as last year. And as we may hear tonight, earlier this week, I had the chance to speak with Tom Crutchfield, the one and only Tom Crutchfield, about his recent trip to the Wiggum Rattlesnake Roundup up in Georgia.
Down in Georgia.
Down in Georgia. Well, for him, it was up in Georgia. So I'm not talking to him, Tom.
I thought you were still in the Caribbean.
And you know, that too, Bumbleclad. No, that too. So he's going to talk about his experience. This is one of the last rattlesnake roundups in Georgia. This is the last rattlesnake roundup in Georgia that collects and still slaughters wild rattlesnakes, namely mostly eastern diamondbacks. But we'll hear later, I think there were some other species in there too.
Interesting. Now, how many rattlesnake roundups are there in Georgia? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I know there's, I think, at least two other educational ones. Claxton was one of the recent ones.
Right, that was one of the bigger ones that eventually
that turned
converted,
over.
right?
Like that was one of the last big boys to turn over. And then these are the last people standing. And it was really interesting to get someone's perspective, like Tom. Tom's an expert on rattlesnakes on so many levels. Not only worked with them in captivity and knows these animals, but he knows his way around them in the wild. And he's been keen to them over the span of several decades, and he's been able to see things and offers a really unique perspective. So I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy hearing from him. And hopefully we can get that in a little later on. I'll play that for you, and you won't want to miss that.
I'm sure he had some interesting things to say about it.
He did. And the season is well underway, so it's about time we start kicking this pony and getting going, because it has been, as you'll find out, it's been going on for a while. I mean, the rattlesnake roundup season is not something that's like, okay, it's February 2nd, let's get started. No, these people are planning this all year round, and as you come to find out, some of these animals are already in captivity.
Yep.
The majority of the animals that are going to be used in these roundups coming up in the upcoming months are already in captivity right now.
And they've been in captivity for several months at this point, Pretty much they start almost as soon as the last festival ends to start go out and collecting. And it's a shame because they don't just, well, obviously for many reasons it's a shame, but one of the biggest reasons I think is that they go to other areas and collect them. It's not as if they stay in one specific area. Some even go out of state and collect.
Well, I don't want to give away too much about this interview, but Tom actually mentions the fact that at this show, at this date, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago, there were western diamondback rattlesnakes present. And guess where those snakes came from? Those are more than likely leftovers from Sweetwater.
Wow, they actually leftover ones?
If such a thing happens, so we'll see. And if you couldn't tell, the roundup season started. It's well underway as several proponents have already, I must proudly announce, have already started sending me harassing emails.
Oh, really?
Yes. Thank you. thank you. And it basically happened. I found out to other people too. Anyone basically who contests the validity of the slaughter fest that are these things. So stay tuned, because it is going to be a spectacular year in the history of the beginning of the end of Rattlesnake Roundups, Andy. I promise you that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fantastic year.
All right.
So.
We got to get this done, man. We got to get it done.
And speaking of things we got to get done, I need to take a moment to salute Andy, salute, please. Chris, salute, please. Everybody. I'd like to take a moment to salute the thousands of unsuccessful Everglades python hunters who've taken place in the debacle known as the 2013 Pythons Hunt. Thank you, gentlemen. Fantastic work. In tremendous fit of wisdom, Florida state officials granted permits to just about anybody who wanted to hunt their very own giant pythons.
As long as you took a 2-hour online course, you were allowed to hunt. How ridiculous is that?
I know. apparently you're able to pick from the previously estimated 150,000 snakes that run rampant down there. And obviously we're seeing that hunters are very picky about their quarry, because so far they've only returned 50 snakes to date.
No,
And
51.
is it 51?
51. You know,
Beyonce.
yeah,
That's
what are you
right.
talking about,
Beyonce. Yeah, you'll have to check out. Those are for our Facebook friends. You'll know what we're talking about. Thank you to so many people, Chris Allen, a couple other people who
Those
really,
pictures are hilarious, man.
Everybody took to photoshopping Beyonce's now infamous Super Bowl picture.
Ugh.
And to taking her to new levels and catching pythons in the Everglades. So thank you guys, Jungle Junkies. I love you. That was fantastic stuff. You guys are awesome. So interesting stuff going on down there. There have definitely been stories of everything from target practice with native fauna to drunkenness, even some herpers looking to donate ringers to the contest, allegedly, according to one newspaper.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There's just endless amount of stories there. We'll see, because this year's event ends tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I'll be really eager to see what the final tally is. Besides
I'm saying
Beyonce.
52.
You think it'll be 50 or go over 51?
I think so. I think so. I don't see anything really big coming out of it, like both number wise and animal wise. But I just, they're gonna spin it how they need to spin it to say that was a success. But they did it in the middle of the winter. Now, yes, it is Florida, so
I can attest, dude. It's like 85 down there, though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, all right. So that has nothing to do with it.
No.
I retract my previous statement.
It's been an incredibly mild winter down in that area, and in the very least, it's been in the 70s. And these last couple of days, I know they've been in the 80s down there. When I was down in Miami the day before yesterday, it was like 80. So the weather, I don't think being a factor, especially if you're looking. I think the majority of the animals are being found as they sun themselves in the morning. So it's probably
of course.
If you're of course familiar with Burmese python or snake behavior in general, which you're not, because you're just crazy rednecks with permits running around shooting things in the Everglades in drunken fits of incestuous love or whatever. So
alleged incest.
Alleged.
I'm sure they did.
And it all ends tomorrow. Sunday. Thank you, Sunday. And
it's the Lord's Day, so they got to rest.
The Lord said, "No hunters pythons.
Let there be pythons.
Let there be pythons on Sunday." And so the pythons will get their reprieve and give thanks. And there will be an award ceremony held in the Miami Metro Zoo in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm sure they're happy to be holding that ceremony.
I'm considering attending, Andy. I'm considering.
Are you really?
I'm considering attending, in order to have representation for the snakes of the Everglades. I think the snakes of the Everglades should have a voice. So I'm thinking of maybe going down there and buying every rubber snake I can possibly find and attaching it to my body as a representative of the snakes of the Everglades.
Oh man, too bad. We didn't think about it ahead of time. But we could have found that inflatable snake for you to wear down there.
wait, you're gonna have to say that's not in the works.
What?
And so we'll see. Maybe the snakes need to be represented. So at the ceremony, I don't know. The security's gonna be all over this one.
What you need to do besides dress yourself up in hundreds of rubber snakes is also throw Spanish moss and other rubber snakes at the people, a la toads. Frogs.
Rise. Oh boy, stay tuned, and we will definitely give you the final countdown rundown on how it all happened and went down and all that good stuff. I'm sure you'll be waiting for. So
yeah, with bated breath, I'm sure.
What saith you, Andy? We get started, huh?
I saith, let's goeth.
And a goeth we shall. You could dance, Chris. Oh, go Chris. Go Chris. Go Chris. Crazy white boy. On the couch.
Two of them.
Ouch. Oh, good Lord. Let's get our guest on before he hangs up.
Yeah, please.
I'm glad to say that I'm sure we, as experienced of a speaker as Marty is, he's never had the experience of being on a show with a live rapper, and I think that's something was confirmed on Facebook earlier today. So we will speak to him shortly about it. But our guest this evening is a 6-time award-winning author of the book "Cool Creatures, Hot Planet: Exploring the 7 Continents." Following the release of his book, Marty transformed Cool Creatures, Hot Planets into a multimedia show called Around the World in 90 Minutes. He's been performing around the world in 90 minutes at colleges and other venues since 2008. It's arguably the second most popular slideshow of all time, behind Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. So please, Jungle Junkies, help give a warm welcome to the one and the only Marty Essen. Marty, you with us?
Yeah, I'm there.
Hey, Marty, how you doing, bud?
Hi, Andy.
How's everything going?
Good. Other than the fact that when you guys talk to me, it keeps cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's better.
Okay, is it a little bit better now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, hopefully it'll hold with us. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marty. I really appreciate you coming on with us. Your book is really great. I have not had the chance to finish it yet, but it's pretty amazing just in the fact that you have the amazing honor of having traveled the world and seen so much.
Yes. Traveling the world was quite the experience. It wasn't exactly planned, but once we got started, you get momentum and you just keep going.
So, I mean, your book "Cool Creatures, Hot Planet" follows you and your wife Deb on an 8-trip, 3.5-week-long adventure to some of the wildest places on all 7 continents. I think you obviously need to let us know about some of the places you've gone, because we have tons of animal lovers worldwide that are just shaking in envy at some of the stuff that I have seen already that you've experienced.
I'm sorry, you cut out again.
So sorry, this audio is killing us. It's Marty. I'm sorry. It's when so many people pop up on our show, it just totally drowns us out. It's something we're working on. It's growing pains. Please, I'm sorry. I apologize. Tell us a little bit about where exactly it was that you went.
Okay. Well, I ended up going. We started in Belize, and this is kind of how the whole thing started. I live here in Montana, and what we did is we run an independent phone company here in Montana, totally unrelated to this, but I've always been interested in animals, and especially reptiles and amphibians. And after going a long, long time without taking a vacation, we decided to go to Belize just to get away from it all. And we went down to Belize and just had this unbelievable adventure, came back and realized we have the travel bug. And ever since I was 8 years old, I had wanted to visit the Amazon rainforest. So we put together a trip to go down to the Amazon. And just before we left, it was the 10th anniversary of our independent phone company out here in Montana, and the local newspaper came out to do a feature story on me. And after the interview was done, I walked the reporter to the door and shook his hand and said, "I'll see ya. I'm heading down to the Amazon." And the reporter said, "Really? Would you like to write a story about it?" I said, "Sure. I'd love to write a story about it. I've written for newspapers and magazines before." And so we went down to the Amazon, had a great adventure down there in the Peruvian Amazon, and came back, and the story ran as a feature not only in my local paper, the Valley Republic, but it was also picked up by the Missoulian, which is one of the biggest newspapers in Montana. And after that story ran, people would recognize me from the author photo. If I was in a restaurant or in a store or something, they'd come up to me and they'd say, "Wow, we love that story. Are you going to write another one?" Well, we'd always wanted to go to Australia, so off we went to Australia, wrote another story, and the same thing happened. And at that point I thought, maybe I have something here. And I did a little research and found out that no one had ever written a book on the concept of travel to all 7 continents looking for rare and interesting wildlife. So we just continued our travels over the 3.5 years. And from Australia, we ended up for North America. We did Canada. And then we went to the opposite direction down to Antarctica. For Asia, we ended up going to Borneo. For Europe, we went to Spain, France, Switzerland, and Andorra.
Wow.
And then we finally ended up the 7 continents of travels in Zimbabwe, Africa.
Wow. Borneo, my God, that is like the place of places I think for me to go to.
That's definitely up there on the list.
Wow. What was that?
Oh, it should be on everybody's list. It's spectacular.
Borneo is one of those places. I mean, you're an animal guy, I'm assuming, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, is that one of the primary interests you had in going to these places, is to see the wildlife, or was it just kind of soaking everything in all together?
No, it was the whole theme of the book was to look out there and to find rare and interesting wildlife. And so we were always trying to go to places where there was going to be good wildlife. You know, one of the things I was worried about was going to Europe. I thought, you know, what I was doing is essentially writing this book live, because we'd go out and each trip would be about 3 weeks long, and I'd come back and I'd write at least the basics of the chapter before we'd go out on another adventure. And I always worry, well, what would happen if we have a boring trip? I'm going to have to have my readers listen or read a boring story. And I was worried about Europe, and Europe actually turned out great. We found all sorts of herbs in Europe, Spanish ibex, and great birding, flamingos. It was a really cool trip to Europe. So we ended up, every single trip we went on, including Europe, something magical happened. And it couldn't have worked out better for a book.
So how up close and personal were you with these animals and the wildlife that you saw? I mean, were you able to... Sorry, go ahead.
It depended on the animal. You know, with reptiles and amphibians, obviously you can get really close. When it's a hippo, you probably don't want to get too close, although we ended up getting close. We can get into that in a little bit. So it really depends on the animal. But we had some real strict rules for our behavior, because, you know, we didn't want to change the behavior of the animals.
Right.
And a great example, and something that I use in the show that I do around the world in 90 minutes, I do at colleges all across the country, is one of the things Deb and I had the privilege of doing was going out and hiking with the porcupine caribou migration up in northern Canada.
Wow.
And this is the longest migration of any land animal on Earth. They start in Canada, cross the Porcupine River. That's how the herd gets the name of the porcupine herd. And eventually they end up in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge of Alaska. And so we spent a day out hiking with the herd. And it's kind of, you're just going to have to visualize as I explain this, but we would see this, we were in this valley, and you'd have these waves of animals coming down in front of us. And we would get as close as we could until the animals started arcing around us. And then we would just back up maybe 15 or so feet until they started going straight, and then we knew we were okay. So that's one of the things, an example of what we would try to do with the animals. You get as close as you can, but you don't want to change their behavior. You want them to be comfortable with you being there. I mean, we're not there to disturb the wildlife.
Right. And that's good that you were obviously first and foremost respectful of the wildlife, because obviously some of the joy, or most of the joy I think I find in observing wildlife is, you know, having them not change their behavior in any way because you're present, you know, getting to observe them as they are in situations. So that's fantastic, but you obviously can't help but have some incidences because you're out there and it is the wild. For instance, you alluded to some hippos. Now, I had the honor of going to Africa and spending some time in the Masai Mara, actually. And I got to actually remember one day when I got to go fishing on the Mara River with a Maasai guide. And his whole job was to look out for hippos. And I remember being like, hippos, right? You know, this is early on in the trip. Like, you know, they're no big deal. And they started off as specks far away. And then I remember, like, literally within minutes, all of a sudden, it just, boom, closer and closer. And it wasn't really until then you understood the significance of these animals, and, you know, you hear the stories that this animal is primarily responsible for more attacks, you know, than any other in Africa. And you can't realize until you actually are out there and see. I mean, I couldn't imagine having an encounter with an animal like that, because I would assume there's just nothing you can do.
Right. Do you want me to
That about says it all.
tell your audience about my hippo attack story?
Yes, please.
Oh, please.
Okay, here's the hippo story. And, you know, one of the things about the story is, keep in mind, this happened in the last chapter of the book. And, you know, you always want a book to end with a big bang. We could not have had a bigger bang. We're in Zimbabwe, Africa, and we had just hiked 53 miles across Manipul's National Park. And had this wonderful adventure, including catching a 10.5-foot-long African rock python we may want to talk about later. But we get done with the hiking portion, and we're going to get into canoes, and we're going to retrace our tracks down the Zambezi River. And on this expedition, we had two other couples. It was my wife and I and these two other couples, and then we had two guides, a primary guide and an assistant guide. And as we were walking along the river for those 5 days, as we hiked the 53 miles, we would see these huge Nile crocodiles on the shore, and we knew there had to be bigger ones in the water. And then, of course, the hippos. And we were told we would pass 1,500 hippos on our trip down the Zambezi over 3 days. And my wife and I and the other two couples were nervous about this. But our main guide, sensing the nervousness, what he did is he sat us down and he said, listen, I've been taking people down the Zambezi River for 16 years. Never once have we had anyone attacked by an animal. Sit back, relax. You will be surprised how safe and easy the trip is. So we get into canoes, 5 canoes in all, and we head down the Zambezi River. And we are down the river 15 minutes, and we come across this barricade of hippos. And the hippos, they're snorting and they're roaring, and I'm wondering, how are we going to get past these hippos? But the hippos sink underneath the water, and we canoe right over them with our hearts just pounding. But later on, we reached an area where we didn't see any hippos, nothing except water. And so we're relaxed. It's a gorgeous day out. But one of the rules with hippos is you always want to canoe in deep water. But the Zambezi River can change. You can be out in the middle and you can hit bottom. You can be along shore and it can be very deep. And in this portion of the river, it's deep along shore. So we are single file right up against the shore. And my wife and I are in the second to the last canoe. And we're enjoying this beautiful day, finally relaxed. And we've been on the river now about 3 hours. And all of a sudden we feel this bump. And we're thinking, oh my God. First thing we're thinking is we're thinking we hit a rock. And next thing you know, we are 6 feet up in the air. What the hippo did is it came underneath us. Its lower tusk went right through the bottom of the canoe. Its top jaw came over and snapped the gunwale. If you can imagine a front-end loader lifting gravel and then dumping it on shore, that's what the hippo did to us. Now, luckily, it bit right dead center of the canoe. If it bit a little bit farther to the back, it would have killed me. A little farther to the front, it would have killed my wife. But we go up in the air, and I fly out of the canoe first, and then she flies out of the canoe, and she hits the ground with this eerie thud. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, she's dead. And I run up to her. Deb, are you okay? Are you okay? She gets up, and then we remember the hippo, and we wheel toward the water, and the hippo dropped the canoe and then melted back into the Zambezi River. And my wife and I, we look at each other and we realize, hey, we're okay. And we break into hysterical laughter because how often does one get a chance to get attacked by a hippo and live through it? And so, I mean, we are just howling. I've got tears streaming down my cheeks. I'm laughing so hard. But the other two couples, they come running up onto the riverbank, and the first thing they say is, we're done. We're hiking out of here. And but unfortunately, we weren't set up to hike out. People were expecting us downriver. It was going to be dark, so we really needed to continue. And so it took us about 10 minutes. We finally convinced the other two couples to continue. Now, Deb's and my canoe, it was destroyed, so there's no way that was going to hold water. So we ended up having to double up into canoes. And my wife, Deb, took the middle of one canoe, and someone else took the middle of the other canoe. And I can still see it as we push back out onto the water. The other two couples, they are literally physically shaking with fear about having to face the hippos again. Now, my wife and I, we are still laughing. And when I see her in the middle of the canoe, it hits me, and I yell to her, Deb, you're sitting in the death seat. And our guide goes, shh, because I'm making things so much worse for the other two couples. And, it kind of sounds like I'm bragging, like I'm this big, great outdoorsman, but we were so high on adrenaline. We didn't have a chance to get nervous. We were up in the air and slammed on the ground, and we were literally just slap happy on adrenaline. But later on that night, once we made it to camp and the adrenaline wore off, we were every bit as nervous as the other two couples because we had 2 more days of having to face the hippos. So that's the hippo story.
Oh my God!
Send me home. Just send me home.
I would just have probably soiled myself continuously instead of laughing or simultaneously with the laughter.
I think I soiled myself just listening to that story.
See, because, the scary thing is, too, is you can't appreciate it. Like, when you get out to these places out in the middle of nowhere, I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. Like, if you sprain your ankle, you're screwed. Never mind, like, getting gored by a hippo, It's crazy.
Well, yeah, and the hippo, because they have a lot of bacteria in their mouths, that actually that was, if it didn't get us, if it bit us and it didn't get us immediately, the bacteria would have been a thing we really would have needed to worry about, and we would have needed to get to medical help real quickly, because that's what's going to get you.
Yeah, I'll say. Oh my goodness, that's great. Well, no, it's great that you're able to just, appreciate that, because, I mean, that's obviously a gift to experience a moment like that, and then, be able to appreciate it for what it's for.
Laugh at it.
Yeah, and I don't know how this would pale, but you've actually also, speaking of reptiles, been bitten by a venomous snake.
The venomous snake thing is, technically I was bitten by a venomous snake, but it's one of those things when you say it sounds a lot more exciting than it really was. This was on the island of Borneo. And we had this guide. He was a wonderful guide. His name was Stephen. He was about 55 years old, and he belonged to the Sigma de Sun tribe. And we had hired him because of his great knowledge of the rainforest. He literally was born in the rainforest. In fact, he didn't leave the rainforest until he was about 15 years old and hiked out with his school teacher to a little village. So he knew the rainforest of Borneo better than anyone. But even he can get something wrong. There's so many new and so many different animals in Borneo. And we're hiking through the forest, and my wife Deb spots this little snake on the ground. And we call, as we always do, one of the reasons we have a guide is because there's no way that me being an American can recognize every single species in Borneo. And so I didn't know if it was venomous or not. So we called him over, and he looks at the little snake, and he says, "Worm snake, harmless." And so I pick up this little, what I thought was a worm snake, and I'm taking some pictures of it. I got my one hand I'm holding it, in the other hand I'm taking pictures, and it bites me 3 or 4 times in the finger, but it's a baby worm snake. It can't quite break my skin. And so I put it back down, don't think anything of it, until I'm back in Montana, and I'm working on my chapter, and I'm doing my post-trip research, and I came up with a perfect match. It wasn't a worm snake that was biting me. It was a venomous banded coral snake that was biting me. So we're very lucky it was a small coral snake, or we could have had a dramatically different ending to our Borneo adventure.
Oh yeah, totally not an exciting story there, Marty. That would also have equaled me soiling myself afterwards, probably in the comfort of my own home in that situation. But...
Why do you continue to put yourself in these perilous situations, Marty?
Well, it's kind of the Steve Irwin philosophy, I guess.
Okay.
One of the things I've had I'm a real big environmentalist, and I've had a conversation with other environmentalists who disagree with me on this, but I think Steve Irwin was the most important, influential environmentalist of the last 20 years. And then you have people, who like Bill Maher, who might make fun of Steve Irwin. But I disagree with him because one of the things that I do, in addition to going out and speaking to colleges, when I'm home in Montana, instead of going out and speaking to college students, I will go out and I will speak to younger students. And I own 2 rainbow boas, and I'll bring them into the schools. And you will see that the kids that have been exposed to Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, react totally different to the snakes than, say, the teachers. I've gone into schools, and the teacher knows I'm going to bring the snake out, and the teacher will run out of the classroom when I bring my 6-foot-long rainbow boas out.
Nice.
And so this is, Steve Irwin has, by doing exciting things, if he just went and, there is a black mamba over there, let's take a look at it from a safe distance, his show would have been canceled after 2 episodes. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of have the same philosophy when I'm out. And, not only do I love reptiles and amphibians, I love all animals. But if my book wasn't exciting, if I was just, really observing from the far distance, and there wasn't some sort of interaction, then my book would be boring. And so that I guess I kind of use that philosophy. I wanted my book to be as exciting as possible. I mean, again, we're kind of balancing with what I talked about earlier, is not trying to disturb the animals. You know, there are certain ones where maybe they're disturbing us, like a hippo, or I'm down in Antarctica, and the penguins are coming right up to me. And of course, I do make exceptions with snakes. I do like to catch snakes. The bigger, the better.
Who doesn't?
So there are times where I will interact, like when I caught a 10.5-foot long python in Zimbabwe, which is as big of a snake as I would ever dare capture by myself.
All right, so take me to that moment real quick, not to detract from what you're saying, but I have to know about, because this was one of my biggest disappointments when I went to Africa, was not finding a big python. What is that like?
We actually found two. We found, and we went days without finding them. And actually what found the pythons both times were the birds. Is the birds would let us know, and we had birders with us, and it was one of those interesting things where, you know, the birders really could care less about Marty the herper wanting to find the snakes, and I like birds, I love birds, but I was not as into birding as they were. But the two of us, we would work together, you know. So we'd go find a cool bird, and you'd look underneath where the birds were, and that's how we found the first python. We would have never seen it, because it was in this whole pile of trees that had fallen down, and the birds were just walking up the storm, and we go over there, and in amongst the trees with his head out on a branch was a 7.5-foot long python. And that one was even scary catching, but it was the kind of thing where I just moved in really, really carefully and got it by the neck before it even had a chance to move. Now the 10.5-foot long python was a whole different story. It was Steve Irwin on steroids, because we had stopped for a break down. We were actually part of the way down the Zambezi River. We stopped for a break. We're having a snack, and we see all the birds on top of the trees, probably about 300-400 yards away. And the main guide and myself, we decided to go over there and check it out and see if maybe that's what's going on. And we get there, and out on the open ground was this 10.5-foot long python, as big around as a roll of toilet paper. Oh. And if I was near a town, I would not have been nearly as nervous about catching the snake. But when you're out in the middle of nowhere in Zimbabwe, you know, not that the python would have killed me. That definitely wouldn't have happened. But if it bit me, it probably would have held on for a long time. And you don't want to be stuck in the dark in Zimbabwe with a python around your arm. And so I had to be real careful to make sure it didn't get a hold of me. And the first time I went in after it is probably the time I could have grabbed it, but I chickened out. And then the chase was on, and not really a chase, but the capture was on, and it coiled up in a defensive pose. And every time I would go in at it, it would strike out at me. I'd have to jump back, in the patented Steve Irwin move.
Did you say crikey,
it took me about 50,
Marty?
What?
Did you say crikey at the same time?
I wish I could do Australian accents. I can't, but yeah, I should have said crikey. So it took me about 15 minutes, and eventually we got the snake to start to go on the move again. And as soon as it went on the move, I knew it was then or never, and I just held my breath and dived in for the neck, and I got it, and I got it settled down in about 2 minutes, and then after that, it was a great snake, and I just sat and held it for probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Nice.
And then when I let it go, I gave it a great big kiss and sent him on his way.
Very nice. No blood and no crap on you from the snake, because those rock pythons, sometimes I don't know which end is worse on them, the biting end or the musking side. Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, if people go to my website, which you can get there two different ways. You can either type in my name, Marty Essen, MartyEssen, MartyEssen.com, or CoolCreaturesHotPlanet.com. Both get there, and you'll see a picture on one of the pages, a big picture of me with the python, and you'll see this brown stuff coming down on my bicep. And it's actually one of the things, when I do my college shows, I also show that photo. And
people are always ask me, "Am I bleeding?" And then I say, "No, it's not
quite.
not quite." And so I use it as the opportunity. I say, we're at a college, and it's important for you to learn a new word each day. And the word for today is spooge. And then I explain what spooge is, and everybody gets all grossed out. But it's fun.
Oh, very nice.
I wish you came to my college.
Yeah, seriously, right? All right? So tell us, along those lines, let us know. Tell us a little bit about your show, Around the World in 90 Minutes. I mean, we're obviously getting a very abbreviated, if even just scent of what you've experienced.
This when my book technically came out in 2007. It's kind of becoming the book that will not die. It came out.
That's good.
The first first edition came out, and I went out on this book tour. And in fact, it was kind of fun because it was the middle of the winter, and when I went, I was just going to bookstores with it, and it was just I myself in a car and Adam, my rainbow boa. And we're working our way from Idaho all the way to Minnesota, and this is the middle of the winter. And when I think about it, I'm so lucky that nothing ever happened because I'm trying to keep this rainbow boa warm, and so I'm taking him along on all the visits with us. But anyway, what I ended up doing is, I took so many photos. I took thousands and thousands of photos during my travels. I have a lot of the photos in my book. But you can't put them all in, and so I ended up doing this short show, kind of a slideshow type thing on my book, and I would do that instead of actually reading from the book. And people really liked what I was doing. I got a lot of compliments afterwards, and then I found out that people colleges bring in speakers. And so I took this basic slideshow and made it into this real elaborate multimedia performance. It's basically one part theater, one part lecture, one part slideshow, one part stand-up comedy, and it's a show that's got a lot of action in it. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that stands behind a podium and talks. I'm crawling on the floor. There's just all sorts of things going on. It's a really, really fun but educational show, and so I started doing that shortly after my first book tour, and it just took off, and I've been doing it now in colleges ever since, and I'm still one of the most frequently booked college speakers in the country, and I just have a blast with it. And, you'd think after doing it all this time I would get tired of getting up and saying the same thing every single day, but I don't. It's just so much fun, and the audience gets into it, and it's nice because the audience, after seeing it, they've learned a lot, and I've changed some attitudes, and, it's always kind of fun because you always have the certain people, when I get to the snake photos or a tarantula photo, you have half the audience, with their hands, covering their eyes, but kind of looking in between their eyes as they're watching the show.
Like a horror
show. So I just have a blast with it. And then with the book that's never ended is now we've redone the book again, and it came out, the second edition just came out with a brand new cover, and we put the book out as a Kindle book. And that just came out last month and went straight up to #1 in 3 different categories on Amazon.com. So
we were talking about that.
Continues.
We were talking about that earlier on our Facebook page. Now, I put the post up earlier. Andy, maybe you can get it up for me later on here on the chat room page.
Yeah,
some of our listeners have mentioned already in our live chat room that they've put your book on their wish list now. But for the Kindle listeners, this is crazy. It's only $6.99 for Kindle. That basically works out to like $1 a continent of an adventure. So I mean, it's a great thing, and I guarantee, I mean, you're gonna love the stories. I mean, so far from what we've seen, it's pretty amazing and heard. I mean, what overall, you must have seen just so much over the course of your travels.
I used to keep a list of everything we saw, and I never did complete the list, but I'm sure there are probably well over 1,000 species, during the 7 continents of travels. And in both the Kindle book and the paperback, which are both available on Amazon.com, or my website, either way, both of them have a big selection of photos in it too, as well as all the stories.
We, as we're listening to you talk, Marty, we have on our big screen playing the great slideshow that's on coolcreatureshotplanet.com. and you can get an example of some of the pictures and some of the animals that you've come across. I mean, absolutely stunning situations, including some scary ones. Just as a little while ago, we saw your wife Deb jumping into the Amazon with piranhas. There she is, right there.
There she is.
That's amazing. I mean, and it totally, the adventures you've seen in scope, I can only imagine. It's amazing you're able to put them into a book, first of all, and share with everybody. But of everything that you've seen, what ultimately did you take away? What message do you have out there for people who have not had the chance?
I'm glad you brought that up, Danny. I mean, one of the messages, and I actually start out with when I'm doing my show, it's the very first animal photo I show in my show, is I show this close-up of this vampire bat in Belize. And I talk about, this is maybe one of the most important photos you're going to look at during the show, because when humans move into vampire bat territory, the first thing they tend to want to do is kill off all the vampire bats. And what I explain to the audience is, well, when a vampire bat feeds, what they do is they bite the animal and then they lap up the blood. They don't suck it, they lap it. Right. And in order to do that, it's important that they have a powerful anticoagulant in their saliva, so whatever they're biting continues to bleed. And where I'm getting to the answering your question is what vampire bats do is they actually save human lives, because scientists have taken this anticoagulant, this most powerful anticoagulant known to man, and they've turned it into a heart drug called Draculin. Great name, huh? And Draculin is given to people who have had heart attacks or strokes. So here we have a creature that some people might want to wipe off the face of the map, and yet it is saving human lives all over the world. There's also venomous snakes, where we're getting medicines out of the venom.
Right.
And so one of the reoccurring themes in my show is, not only to respect the wildlife, but you never know when this wildlife may be saving your life later on with some discovery. And I also, you mentioned the piranhas. I talk about animals that have a bad reputation that don't deserve that reputation. And the piranhas are a great example. We've all seen the cheesy jungle flick where somebody falls into a river and they're immediately skeletonized. And I used a photo of my wife in the show, and I set it up kind of as a joke, because I talk about about piranhas, and at first I show this picture of this red piranha, the most ferocious of all the piranhas. And then I say, well, I'm telling you, they don't eat humans. Well, how do you prove that? Well, you send your wife in the water first. Then I go to the picture of my wife, and she's jumping into the water with these red-bellied piranhas, and we go from there. And basically, your red-bellied piranhas, as I'm sure you guys know, they are fin eaters. They eat the fins of other fish. And the only time a piranha would really be dangerous is if it was an extreme drought and they were crammed into a little pool and they didn't have any water and you had a gaping cut on your leg. You probably wouldn't want to swim with piranhas then. But normal water, we had no problem. We were swimming with piranhas and with caimans and electric eels. No problems whatsoever.
Yeah, and I mean, to be able to debunk those myths is such an eye-opener for people, even the layperson, who would normally not take an interest in animals. So, I mean, to be able to use images and stories like that to reach out to the average person and open their eyes up to wildlife. Marty, I'm not to say that you're not a great wildlife ambassador yourself. I mean, I'm sure literally you've opened the eyes of thousands and thousands of people around the country, and, through your experiences and your obvious passion for the animals, which we see, plays a big part of this trip, but also, I mean, just the way you perceive them is very nice. I mean, the fact that you're out there.
That's the whole goal.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think that there's a lot of like-minded people in the world, as well as people who want to be in those positions. I mean, how hard is it really to get out there and see the world?
Well, what I ended up doing and how I got out there is, first of all, my wife and I, we went almost 10 years without taking a vacation. So, a lot of people will go on, maybe one vacation a year, and maybe every once in a while you go on an exotic vacation, but you do it over a long period of time. We did it all in 3.5 years. And the other thing I did is, and this is something college students ask me all the time, because they never have any money. And how can you afford to do this? And one of the ways I was able to afford to do it is we picked up the different credit cards, like the Delta Airlines card or one of the airline cards, and what you do is you charge everything you can possibly charge, groceries, everything you can possibly charge on the airline credit card. You just have to make sure you pay it off every month. If you don't pay it off, well then, you're not going to get the benefit because you're going to eat it up in interest. But if you can be disciplined and you can do that, you can get a lot of airline miles. And so we had a good start with airline miles. That helped us get to some of the places, not all of them, but some of them. And some of the trips really weren't all that expensive. One of my favorite adventures was in the trip where we went from Montana. We did a road trip with our dogs. This was my North American trip, where we drove all the way from where I live in Victor, Montana, all the way up to the very top of Canada, a little town called Inuvik, which is as far north as you can drive. We did that and back, which is actually farther than driving from New York to Los Angeles and back. But it was just one heck of a great adventure. Not only to go out and hike with the porcupine caribou migration, but to see just unbelievable wildlife. I ended up being surrounded by wolves, and that was a great adventure. And that trip didn't cost us anything more than gas, really.
Wow,
very
fantastic.
cool.
See, I wouldn't be able to do that with my dogs. I have my one dog is
psychotic.
I have a little yippy dog that would bark at everything that moved. And then there's I have a bulldog, and I think his gas alone would kill us in the car, unfortunately. So you could, but that's a really great facet, because that's what an amazing experience that must be. For those of us who love our dogs, I know a lot of our listeners really love their dogs. I have 4. I joke around, but we love our dogs a lot. To be able to take them on vacation is one of our favorite things with us. To be able to travel like that, and there's no rush to get back, and just kind of take your time and enjoy the company. It's a great thing.
Well, yeah, really, this was the ultimate dog trip. The dog, what we did is, we put them in the truck, and by the way, we didn't put them in the back of the truck. We put them on the roof of the truck.
Of the car.
They rode in the cab of the truck with us, and they just had a blast. And in fact, when we got home, we were all exhausted, but they didn't even want to leave the truck. They said, "Come on, we got to go back up to Canada again." And it was interesting on how what I had is a golden retriever and a Labrador retriever.
Nice.
And especially when we ran into the wolves and just how they reacted, they were actually almost they didn't react like I thought they would. I thought they tried to defend, but they were more just really, really quiet and just listening and attentive, which made it really cool that we could have experiences with wolves without the dogs interfering.
Yeah, they were like, okay, if it gets really bad, we go with the wolves. Okay, the wolves. Just be quiet. Marty, thanks so much for coming and joining us and telling us your stories, as unfortunately as abbreviated as they are. I can't wait to hear more. I have to catch you live. Please let us know where we can find your book and see your show. Okay, well, first of all, if anybody wants to catch me live, you can go to my website, which is martyessen.com or coolcreatureshotplanet.com. Both addresses go to the same place. And on my website, if you click schedule, you'll see my schedule. And the new stuff is at the very bottom. And it's a huge list because it goes from 2007 all the way into the future. But if you go down to the very bottom, you can see all my dates and whether I'm on the radio or whether I'm at a college. Everything is put there, so if people want to come see the show, and usually when I'm doing the college shows, they're usually free, so it's free entertainment, and because the college pays for me, so you can see the show for free. The book, coolcreatureshotplanet.com. I have some copies that you can still get signed, and those are available on the website, coolcreatureshotplanet.com. And so if you want a signed copy of a 6-time award-winning book, you can do that. Or if you would just rather pick up the book on Amazon.com, both the paperback version and the Kindle version are available on Amazon.com. Very, very nice. Well, Jungle Junkies, make sure you pick up this title. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And if you get the opportunity, get out there. If when you come back here, Marty, to the New York, New Jersey area, we are going to grab a bunch of our local listeners and head up, and we really want to hang out and watch you.
I'm actually talking to a college right now And it's not for sure. It's 99% sure I'm going to be out there April 24th, which is the day after Earth Day.
Okay.
And I'm going to be out on Long Island, actually.
Okay.
But if I have that show, I'm going to have once I get one show, I get an anchor show, then I book all around. So hopefully Earth Week, I'm going to be out in your area.
Great. Well, maybe if you come close to Jersey, you can hang out with us here at the new Urban Jungles Radio Studios.
Cool.
Awesome.
Marty, thank you so much. Great stuff. Please make sure you go check it out. Go to Amazon, Cool Creatures, Hot Planet, Marty Essen. Marty, thank you so much for everything, man.
Thank you, Marty.
Hey, thanks, Danny. Thanks, Andy. I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been a blast.
Take care. It was a tremendous blast for us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Good stuff, Marty Essen, everybody. Give it up for Marty. He was awesome. Yeah, Marty's great, man. I gotta see him. Andy, we gotta check him out live. Absolutely. When he comes out in our area, we're gonna organize like a bunch of people. We'll put out the call, and you guys come out, and we'll have a great party, and we'll make like a big paper mache hippo and harass Marty in the audience with it and stuff. It'll be great.
We'll get one of those two-man suits for hippos, and we'll just start attacking them on stage.
I love it. Only out of love, Marty. Only out of love.
Of course, nothing but love. Love Marty. He's awesome.
All right, I am going to make the decision here. I'm going to make a call that I'm going to hold off on Tom Crutchfield's call, and I'm going to save it for next week because I actually have some more Rattlesnakes Roundup stuff lined up for next week anyway. So we'll piece it all together then, and we will hear from the amazing Tom Crutchfield on his experiences at the Wiggum Rattlesnake Roundups on the next episode of Urban Jungles Radio next Friday night. We're returning back to our normal Friday night. All right, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a quick break for a couple seconds. We're going to set up. We're going to get Chris Perillo all ready and set up on the mic. Chris is going to step up. He's going to throw a little bit of freestyle down. And we're going to end the show with some fun. So everybody hang in tight for a couple seconds. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. The moment you have been waiting for. It's the very first Urban Jungles Radio live performance in studio. And of course, we're honored to have our man Chris Perillo here. Chris, straight out of Shaolin, straight out of Staten Island. You may have heard Chris many times on some of our other songs, such as Black and Yellow and The Legend Grows and so many others. So without further ado, I'm just going to get Chris started on some beats. Chris, you ready? You feeling up to this, my man?
Feeling good.
You feeling good? You
Happy to be here.
The vibe?
Feeling the vibe.
UJR, I want to say anything to our people out there in Urban Jungles Land, Jungle Junkies worldwide listening out?
Very excited. Appreciate everything that you guys do. Nothing better than the Urban Jungles radio show.
That's right. We try. All right, man. Let's kick off this little funky special beat we got here going, Chris. And, just lay into it whenever you feel ready. And that'll take us out for Urban Jungle. So hang in there, people. Here we go. Chris Perillo. Urban Jungles Radio doesn't play around. Urban Jungles Radio doesn't play around. Urban Jungles Radio doesn't play.
Once again, it's the mind bender, 3-time felony offender, demented, brain cemented, mixing the blender, original gun clapper, decapitating rappers, never let shit go, alligator snapper, live a goon's life, slither in the moonlight, roll her eyes in the back of her head when the mood strikes. 2 bull sharks running with a great white. UJR on my back, my desert eagles take flight. We humble cats, kings of this urban jungle shit. We jungle cats. Where my jungle junkies at? Oh no, the things they won't do for that jungle's logo. Matter of fact, fans getting them tats. High off of adrenaline, I injected the venom in under my skin. Can I mix it with my insulin? Fuck it, I'm in. Dangerous hooks like a scorpion. A huntsman I am, like Dominic Monaghan. Too cold to hold, too hot to handle. I'm hunting wild things. Denise Richards and Nev Campbell. More notches under my belt. Hey yo, Bloomberg, go join Koch, fucker, and I'll see you in hell. Let it be known that the legend is grown. I spit so hot, I short circuit the Superdome. Cause there's no denying me, so keep an eye on me. Beastmasters keeping it hood for Herb Society. A hustler's mind on a hustler's grind, destined for greatness. Like the stars were aligned, serial killer, snap, crackle, pop in your spine. I'm living in this time behind enemy lines. I hope you got yours, cause I got mine. She says my song rocks and great rhymes by Chris. Well, tell me one soft kiss, what you think about this? Watch and listen as I do my thing. I got ice in my veins, the heart of a king. With just one glance, we made you piss in your pants. Cause you made a jello, now I got myself a snake that's black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Urban Jungle. Woo! Do it all day. That's how we do it at Urban Jungles.
Chris Perillo, baby, laying it down live.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed.
Who else brings it? Who?